For more, we're joined by Asia One correspondent Jagruti Dave, live from Washington, D.C. So thank you so much, Jagruti, for being with us on Asia One. So what's the latest on U.S. strikes against Iran, and do we have a sense of how long this is going to continue?
Yes, we know that the US has hit Iran for a 12th consecutive night. CENTCOM says, US Central Command that is, says that they aim to degrade further Iran's ability to threaten vessels transiting regional waters. And you've got the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, also joining in, essentially that saying that Iran is not ready to make a deal, at least not one they're willing to live by, and suggesting that they're going to be paying a price. Every night the price gets higher and higher, he said to an ASEAN meeting of foreign ministers in Manila. There's a real sense that the United States is doubling down on its strategy to apply military pressure, clearly as negotiations are still being attempted by mediators. But we're also getting a report in the Wall Street Journal that says the US is surging, as it puts it, forces and equipment to the Middle East, essentially to give President Trump military options as if he indeed considers expanding the conflict against Iran.
So, Jagruti, Donald Trump has issued a new threat to the Houthis. Tell us more about it.
Yes, Donald Trump has said that if the Houthis shoot at Saudi Arabian ships again in the Red Sea, the US will hold Iran responsible as their backers and inflict major military punishment on them both. He said that the US had attacked the Houthis before, very powerfully, he puts it, a year ago for their interference in commerce and trade. He's referring to a bombing campaign on the Houthis in Yemen last year after the Houthis had attacked ships in the Red Sea in solidarity with the situation in Gaza. And the Houthis have said that they struck 2 tankers in the Red Sea, and this comes after they imposed a naval blockade on Saudi Arabia, blaming it for a strike at an airport in the northern Houthi-controlled region. Donald Trump said that during the conflict with Iran, the Houthis have acted very responsibly, he puts it. Unfortunately, now they are starting up again. Both Trump and the US Secretary of State blame Iran for the Houthi action, with Rubio saying that effectively the Houthis were suckered into the situation by Iran.
So now, Jagruti, what did President Donald Trump say about the civil nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, US President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social on Thursday morning saying that the deal with Saudi Arabia is for a civil nuclear program only for non-military use. And he said this was totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords. This was the series of bilateral agreements signed in 2020 by the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain with Israel to normalize their relations. Saudi Arabia did not take part. It said that it would need to first see a clear roadmap towards a Palestinian state. Now, this condition for Saudi Arabia Abraham Accords appears to be a new condition for this agreement, this nuclear agreement signed on Wednesday. And the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, was understandably asked a lot of questions about this, and she reiterated what the president said in that Truth Social post, saying that the nuclear deal is contingent on this new condition. And she said that talks with Saudi Arabian counterparts are underway to get the deal finalized and to get them to join the accords soon. She was asked why this was not mentioned on Wednesday at the signing, and she said that the president is the final deal maker. He made this call on Thursday morning, it seems, and now discussions are underway with US counterparts. She said that the Israelis did not pressure, this was not done after pressure or any conversation with the Israelis to make this happen. And she said that President Trump has not spoken with his counterparts in Saudi Arabia since writing that Truth Social post on Thursday morning. But she indicated that the deal would be off if Saudi Arabia did not sign the accords, the Abraham Accords, but she said that conversations are underway and she hopes that that Saudi Arabia does sign on.
So, Jagruti, Marco Rubio is saying that Iran is refusing to negotiate. Is there still any indication from Washington that diplomacy still can be possible between the two sides, or maybe the U.S. administration now is going toward confrontation?
Well, there is a sense that both sides are downplaying the negotiations. They're talking very tough on both sides. There's a lot of conversation and about the military actions that each side is taking. This doesn't mean that diplomacy is dead. Mediators are still clearly trying to scramble behind the scenes to do it, but there's a lot of distrust on both sides. Marco Rubio is effectively saying that the Iranians are not serious about negotiations. This is a real sense from the United States. Washington has been saying this repeatedly, different officials, that Iran is not serious. Clearly the one major point of contention was who has control over the Strait of Hormuz. This is leverage, new leverage. It seems that the Iranians are flexing their muscles on, because it's something that they didn't do before the US and Israel started their strikes in February. And that's that leverage that the Iranians clearly don't want to lose in the negotiation. So both sides seem to be calculating this particular strategy, the US using its military pressure and the Iranians using pressure on the Strait of Hormuz. It's going to get them the best terms of the deal. But lots of experts are saying this might not be the strategy, and this will just result in continued escalation into something bigger, or just low-level rumblings of tensions across the strait. And of course, this potential second front that's opened up in the Red Sea with the involvement of the Houthis complicates the situation and clearly shows the possibility of this conflict widening in the region.
So, Jagruti, tensions in the Middle East have sent oil prices soaring again. Will this maybe change the strategy of President Donald Trump?
The price of oil is clearly something that everyone is watching very closely. The Brent crude futures breached the $100 a barrel mark. That's the highest since May. As I say, worry about two choke points for oil now, the Red Sea as well as Hormuz. And as I say, the potential for the conflict to spread across the region involving more parties. Here in the US, we've got rising gas prices connected to rising oil prices as well, above, on average across the country, $4 a gallon. So this is clearly a worry, especially for Republicans who are having to explain the war on the campaign trail to voters who are already worried about the cost of living even before the war began. Interestingly, Donald Trump in the White House, when he was meeting with the Lebanese president, told reporters that the midterms won't impact his Iran war plans. He suggested that Iran wanted to affect the results of the midterms, but that he wasn't going to pay that any attention. Now, Republicans, as I say, might not feel the same way, as they are having to campaign and explain the war and the rising fuel prices. And we are seeing, as we talked about right at the beginning, that there are reports that the White House is considering widening its operations against Iran as a way of pressuring Iran to try to make a deal. But mediators, as I say, continue to work behind the scenes in the hope that both sides can recognize that the negotiations are the most effective way forward through this quagmire.
Jagruti Dave, thank you so much for being with us live from Washington, D.C.